Hello, grade sixes. Welcome to today's installment of BFG. I hope you had a good weekend. Friday was a beautiful weather day, so I hope you got outside and were able to enjoy that. Saturday and Sunday aren't supposed to be so nice. I'm recording this Friday, so I'm not sure whether the weatherman will have been correct or not, and whether the rain will come. Let's hope the weatherman is wrong. That would be just fine. Get some more sun. Here we go. We left off with Sophie with Sophie being speechless. And if you did your work on Friday, I had asked, why was she speechless? And if you remember, she's looking at this person that it was the face she had seen on stamps, coins, in the newspapers. And she was actually looking at the Queen. So she was speechless because of that. If you didn't do that Friday, go back and answer it. Here we go. Is that her? The BFG whispered. Yes, Sophie whispered back. The BFG wasted no time. First, and very carefully, he started to raise the lower half of the large window. The BFG was an expert on windows. He had opened thousands of them over the years to blow his dreams into children's bedrooms. Some windows got stuck, some were wobbly, some creaked. He was pleased to find that the Queen's window slid upward like silk. He pushed up the lower half as far as it would go, so as to leave a place on the sill for Sophie to sit. Next, he closed the crack in the curtains. Then, with finger and thumb, he lifted Sophie out of his ear and placed her on the window ledge with her legs dangling, just inside the room, but behind the curtains. Now don't you go tip-toppling backwards, the BFG whispered. You must always be holding on tight with both hands to the inside of the windowsill. Sophie did as he said. It was summertime in London and the night was not cold. But don't forget that Sophie was wearing only her thin nightie. She would have given anything for a dressing gown, not just to keep her warm, but to hide the whiteness of her nightie from watchful eyes in the garden below. The BFG was taking the glass jar from the pocket of his cloak. He unscrewed the lid. Now, very cautiously, he poured the precious dream into the wide end of his trumpet. He steered the trumpet through the curtains, far into the room, aiming it at the place where he knew the bed would be. He took a deep breath. He puffed out his cheeks, and poof, he blew. Now he was withdrawing the trumpet, sliding it out very carefully, like a thermometer. Is you all right sitting there? He whispered. Yes, Sophie murmured. She was quite terrified, but determined not to show it. She looked down over her shoulder. The ground seemed miles away. It was a nasty drop. How long will the dream take to work? Sophie whispered. Some takes an hour, the BFG whispered back. Some is quicker, some is slower still. But it is sure to find her in the end. Here's the illustration for this page. Whoops, sorry. Look at Sophie sitting on that windowsill. She's so cute. Sophie said nothing. I is going off to wait in the garden, the BFG whispered. When you was wanting me, just call out my name, and I is coming very quick. Will you hear me? Sophie whispered. You is forgetting these, the BFG whispered, smiling and pointing to his great ears. Goodbye, Sophie whispered. Suddenly, unexpectedly, the BFG leaned forward and kissed her gently on the cheek. Sophie felt like crying. When she turned to look at him, he was already gone. He had simply melted away into the dark garden. Poor little Sophie. She looks so sad. Alrighty, guys, ladies, I can't stand it. We gotta start. Next chapter, the Queen. Dawn came at last, and the rim of a lemon-colored sun rose up behind the rooftop, somewhere behind Victoria Station. A while later, Sophie felt a little of its warmth on her back and was grateful. In the distance, she heard a church clock striking. She counted the strikes. There were 7. She found it almost impossible to believe that she, Sophie, a little orphan of no real importance in the world, was at this moment actually sitting high above the ground on the windowsill of the Queen of England's bedroom, with the Queen herself asleep in there, behind the curtain, not more than 5 yards away. The very idea of it was absurd. No one had ever done such a thing before. It was a terrifying thing to be doing. What would happen if the dream didn't work? No one, least of all the Queen, would believe a word of her story. It seemed possible that nobody had ever woken up to find a small child sitting behind the curtains, on his or her windowsill. The Queen was bound to get a shock. Who wouldn't? With all the patience of a small girl who has something important to wait for, Sophie sat motionless on the windowsill. How much longer, she wondered. What time do queens wake up? Faint stirrings and distant sounds came to her from deep inside the belly of the palace. Then, all at once, beyond the curtains, she heard the voice of the sleeper in the bedroom. It was a slightly blurred sleep talker's voice. "Oh, no," it cried out. "No, don't! Someone stop them! Don't let them do it! I can't bear it! Oh, please stop them! It's horrible! Oh, it's ghastly! No, no, no!" She is having the dream, Sophie told herself. It must be really horrid. I feel so sorry for her, but it has to be done. After that, there were a few moans. There was a long silence. Sophie waited. She looked over her shoulder. She was terrified that she would see the man with the dog down in the garden staring up at her. But the garden was deserted. A pale summer mist hung over it like smoke. It was an enormous garden, very beautiful, with a large, funny-shaped lake at the far end. There was an island in the lake, and there were ducks swimming on the water. Inside the room, beyond the curtains, Sophie suddenly heard what was obviously a knock on the door. She heard the doorknob being turned. She heard someone entering the room. "Good morning, Your Majesty," a woman was saying. It was the voice of an oldish person. All right, we're going to stop there, guys and ladies. I would like you to tell me in private comments what the BFG did to Sophie that showed how much he cared about her and was concerned. What did he do that showed he was caring and concerned about Sophie? Alrighty, see you later. Bye-bye.